Everything you need is in there. I'll be in touch.
Signed, sealed, and delivered.
I've decided to start a new life, without you. Those words just hung there in the air. We were at this upscale restaurant, celebrating my daughter's college graduation. Gregory, my husband of 28 years, was standing there with his champagne glass raised, and instead of toasting Amelia's achievements, he was announcing the end of our marriage. Everything just stopped. The clinking of silverware, the conversations, everything. 50 pairs of eyes turned toward us, darting between Gregory and me. Everyone was waiting for my reaction, waiting for the tears, the shouting, the dramatic scene they all expected. But, you know what I did? I smiled. "Congratulations on your honesty," I said calmly. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Bianca Caldwell. I'm 54 years old, and until that very moment, I had been playing the role of devoted wife and mother absolutely perfectly. For 28 years, I put my own career dreams on hold. I supported Gregory through 3 different business ventures, 2 complete career changes, and more finding himself phases than I could count. I raised our brilliant daughter Amelia, who was sitting right beside me with her graduation cap still on her head, her face frozen in absolute horror. From the corner of my eye, I could see her, Cassandra Wells, Gregory's much younger girlfriend, shifting uncomfortably at a table in the back. She was sitting with people I had considered friends for decades. The same friends who apparently knew all about the affair, but never bothered to tell me. This was the same Cassandra who had come to our Christmas parties, the same one who had called me once, asking for career advice. With complete calm, I reached into my handbag. I pulled out a sealed cream-colored envelope and placed it gently beside Gregory's plate. "What's this?" he asked. That triumphant look on his face started to falter. "Something for you to read later," I replied, keeping my voice perfectly steady. I turned to Amelia. Her face had gone completely pale. I kissed her cheek and said, "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. This day is still about your accomplishment." Then I stood up, smoothed out my dress, and addressed all of our stunned guests. "Please, everyone, enjoy your meal. I wish you all a lovely afternoon." And with that, I walked out, head held high. I could feel all 50 pairs of eyes following me as I went. The heavy door swung shut behind me, cutting off what was surely about to become very anxious chatter. Outside, the Augusta summer heat hit me like a wall, but honestly, I welcomed it. For the first time in years, I could actually breathe freely. Behind me, I heard the restaurant door open and then slam shut. Gregory's voice followed, but it wasn't confident anymore. It was high-pitched and frantic. "Bianca, what the hell is this? What have you done?" I just kept walking. I allowed myself a small smile. That envelope I'd handed him, it contained the beginning of my revenge. A revenge I had been meticulously planning for months. You see, I'd always been the practical one in our marriage. While Gregory dreamed big and took his risks, I was the one maintaining the stability our family needed. I was the one who saved for Amelia's education. When Gregory made that unwise investment in his friend's restaurant venture, I was the one working extra hours at Trevanta Corp as a finance manager when his midlife crisis hit, and he quit his stable job to follow his passion. He wanted to sell handcrafted furniture. That passion lasted about 6 months before he got bored. My own dreams. Opening a financial consultancy for women. Those dreams were always on hold. After Amelia graduates, I kept telling myself, after Gregory finds some stability. But stability never came, because Gregory was too busy planning his escape. 3 months ago, I started noticing something. Discrepancies in our joint accounts. Small transfers going to an account I didn't recognize. Now, I'd spent 20 years managing our family finances, so these irregularities, they stood out like bright red flags. I could have confronted Gregory right away, but something held me back. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was just the growing distance I'd been feeling between us over the past year. Instead, I started quietly investigating. What I discovered was so much worse than I'd imagined. Gregory had been systematically moving funds to a separate account for over a year. He'd also been taking Cassandra to expensive restaurants, buying her jewelry, looking at beachfront properties, all while telling me we needed to tighten our belts for retirement. Then I found the text messages. Gregory had left his phone unlocked one day, and there they were. Messages about their new life together. Messages about how he was finally breaking free. Messages about their plans for the day after Amelia's graduation. The exact day he'd chosen to make his grand exit from our marriage. Here's what Gregory forgot, or maybe never fully understood. I'd been a financial professional for 30 years. I understood money trails. I knew how to trace assets. And most importantly, I remembered the prenuptial agreement we'd signed 28 years ago, back when I had more family money than he did. The agreement that he had insisted on, ironically to protect his future earnings. Well, it contained a fidelity clause that was about to become his complete undoing. So while Gregory was plotting his escape with Cassandra, I was building my case. I consulted with attorneys. I documented every single hidden transfer. I gathered all the evidence of their affair. I prepared divorce papers. I timed everything perfectly, knowing Gregory would want to wait until after Amelia's graduation to avoid ruining her big day. What he didn't expect, that I would serve him the divorce papers the morning of the graduation. Before his planned announcement, the papers were still safely hidden in court records, where he couldn't access them yet. What Gregory didn't know was that I was always 3 steps ahead of him. I didn't go back to the restaurant. Instead, I drove straight to our home. A spacious colonial house in a historic district that we'd purchased 15 years ago. The same house that Gregory had already promised to Cassandra. According to text messages he didn't realize I'd seen. I parked in the driveway and calmly walked into what had been our shared space for over a decade. Everything looked exactly the same. The family photos on the walls. The antique grandfather clock that had been my father's, that worn leather couch where Gregory and I had once sat together dreaming about our future. But everything had changed. I went upstairs to the master bedroom and opened the closet. There they were. Gregory's clothes, already packed in suitcases, hidden in the back, ready for his planned departure tomorrow. I smiled at his predictability. He'd always been so meticulous about his clothing, but so careless about the things that actually mattered. My phone was buzzing like crazy with messages. Friends from the restaurant. Amelia. Even Gregory's sister Diana, who had flown in for the graduation. I only responded to my daughter. I'm okay. This isn't your burden to carry. Enjoy your graduation day. We'll talk tonight. I love you. I'd protected Amelia from the truth for months. I didn't want to overshadow her final semester with family drama. She'd be angry that I hadn't told her. I knew that, but she would understand eventually. Amelia had inherited my practicality along with her father's charisma. It was a powerful combination that had helped her graduate with honors. 3 hours later, I heard Gregory's car pulling into the driveway. The front door slammed open. "Bianca," he shouted. His voice was echoing through the whole house. "Where are you?" I was sitting calmly in the living room, reviewing documents on my laptop. I closed it as he stormed in, his face flushed red with anger, clutching that envelope in his hand. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, waving the papers at me. "You served me with divorce papers. Today of all days. I thought it aligned nicely with your plans," I replied calmly. "You wanted to start your new life. I'm simply helping you facilitate that transition. You had no right to." "I had every right," I interrupted, keeping my voice steady. "Just as you had every right to choose Cassandra. We all make choices, Gregory." "The prenup expired years ago," he said, and suddenly his voice was smug. "Any lawyer will tell you that." I allowed myself a small smile. Actually, it didn't. Section 12 specifically states that the fidelity clause remains in effect for the duration of the marriage. Your lawyer should have explained that to you. Oh wait, you didn't consult one, did you? I watched the color drain from his face as reality started sinking in. That prenup he'd insisted on to protect his potential wealth. It was about to cost him everything. The house, the vacation property in Savannah, his portion of our retirement accounts. His grand gesture at the restaurant had just become the most expensive announcement of his entire life. "You can't do this to me," Gregory said, practically collapsing onto the couch. "We built this life together, and you chose to end it," I replied. "Just not in the way you'd planned." Gregory's phone kept buzzing in his pocket. He glanced at it, then ignored it. Cassandra, no doubt, wondering where he was and why he wasn't, following their carefully orchestrated plan. "You've always been calculating, Bianca, but this is cold," he said, trying a different approach. What about our history? Do 28 years together mean nothing? I studied him carefully. This man I had loved for nearly 3 decades. The man who had held my hand through 2 miscarriages before we finally had Amelia. The man who had once surprised me with a romantic weekend trip to Charleston for our 10th anniversary. When had he changed? Or had he always been this person, and I'd just been too devoted to notice? Our history meant everything to me. I answered truthfully. That's exactly why your betrayal hurts so deeply. His expression softened for a moment. Maybe he saw an opening. Then maybe we can fix this. I made a mistake. People make mistakes, Bianca. This wasn't a mistake, Gregory. This was a calculated plan spanning more than a year. You systematically moved our money. You looked at property with her. You planned to announce our separation publicly to humiliate me. His face hardened again. You're exaggerating, am I? I picked up my phone, opened the recording app, and pressed play. Gregory's own voice filled the room. After the graduation. I'll tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't make a scene in front of everyone. Then Cassandra's voice. And she has no idea about the money. Gregory again. None. Bianca trusts me completely. That's her weakness. All the blood drained from his face. You recorded our conversations. That's illegal. Not in Georgia, when one party consents, I responded calmly. And certainly not when it's in your own home. I didn't record your private moments with Cassandra. I'm not cruel. Just the conversations about your plans to defraud me. Gregory stood up suddenly, visibly agitated. I need to make some calls. Of course, I said. Your attorney might be a good place to start. I'll be staying at Diana's tonight. Diana's, he sputtered. My sister's house. I nodded. She's quite upset with you, actually. She was the one who first spotted you and Cassandra together last Christmas. She didn't tell me immediately. She confronted you first. You promised her it was nothing, that you would end it. When she realized you hadn't, she came to me. This was another blow he clearly hadn't anticipated. Diana and I had always been close, but Gregory never imagined his own sister would choose my side. Everyone's betraying me, he muttered. Ironic, isn't it? I said. I gathered my purse and the small overnight bag I'd packed earlier. You have until tomorrow evening to remove your things from the house. After that, the locks will be changed. As I headed toward the door, Gregory called after me. I could hear the desperation in his voice. What about Amelia? Have you thought about how this affects her? I paused. The anger finally broke through my calm facade. Don't you dare use our daughter as a shield, Gregory. You certainly weren't thinking about her when you were planning your new beachfront life with Cassandra. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked at it and actually groaned. Problem? I asked. Cassandra's at the apartment already. She's moved her things and I couldn't help but smile. The apartment you put in both your names. The lease you signed last month. Gregory nodded, looking confused. You might want to check with the leasing office. That application was flagged for credit issues and never got completed. The agent called our home phone to verify information. I handled it myself. I walked out the door, leaving Gregory there to face the first of what would be many consequences. His perfectly planned new life was unraveling faster than he could even process. Diana lived in this charming bungalow across town, close to the university where she taught literature. When I arrived, she greeted me with the fiercest hug. I just heard from Amelia, she said, pulling me inside. Are you okay? I'm actually better than I expected, I admitted. Following her to the kitchen, where a bottle of wine was already open and waiting. I never thought Gregory would make such a spectacle, Diana said, pouring to glasses. The restaurant. In front of everyone. He's completely lost his mind. It was meant to humiliate me, I explained, accepting my glass. A public rejection, so I couldn't fight back without looking hysterical. Diana's face darkened. My brother always did have a flair for drama. But this is beyond anything I expected from him. We settled into her sunroom, surrounded by potted plants and bookshelves. Diana had never married, always preferring her independence and academic pursuits. Over the years, I'd sometimes envied her that freedom. What did you put in that envelope that made him so upset? She asked. I explained everything. The divorce filing. The evidence of his financial deception. And most importantly, the prenuptial agreement that would leave him with far less than he'd ever planned on. Diana looked amused. I remember when he insisted on that. Father had just given him that money for his first business, and Gregory was so worried about protecting it. She laughed bitterly. The irony is absolutely delicious. My phone rang. It was Amelia. I took a deep breath before answering. Mom, she said immediately, her voice strained. I'm coming over to Aunt Diana's. Honey, you don't have to. I'm already on my way, she interrupted. Dad is telling everyone you've lost your mind. That you've been planning this for months. He's saying horrible things about you. Of course he was. Gregory always rewrote the narrative to cast himself as the victim. Let him talk, I said. The truth will become clear soon enough. 20 minutes later, Amelia arrived. Still in her graduation dress, but with her makeup smudged from crying. She fell into my arms like she used to as a child after having a nightmare. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice muffled against my shoulder. I didn't want to ruin your final semester, I explained. You worked so hard for this day. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Well, Dad took care of ruining it anyway. We moved to Diana's living room. And that's where Amelia finally got the full story. How I'd discovered the affair. All the financial deceptions. The plans Gregory and Cassandra had been making together. I knew something was off with Dad, Amelia admitted. He's been different. Distracted. Always on his phone. But I never imagined anything like this. None of us want to see these things in the people we love, Diana said gently. My phone buzzed with a text from Philip Anderson, my attorney. The emergency filing had been approved. The accounts I'd identified were now frozen, pending the divorce proceedings. Gregory had limited access to funds now. Enough for basic living expenses, but nowhere near enough to follow through on those property purchases he'd planned with Cassandra. I showed the message to Diana and Amelia. Good, Amelia said firmly. He deserves everything that's coming to him. My daughter's loyalty warmed my heart, but I wasn't naive about the situation. He's still your father, I reminded her gently. Your relationship with him is separate from what's happening between us. Amelia shook her head. Maybe someday, but right now, I can't even look at him. He hugged me this morning, told me how proud he was, all while planning to blow up our entire family just hours later. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Diana went to answer it, then came back with a troubled expression on her face. It's Gregory, she said quietly, and he's not alone. I steeled myself as Diana led them into the living room. Cassandra looked incredibly uncomfortable, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, her eyes darting nervously around the room. She was 37, not exactly a trophy wife, but still 17 years younger than me. Short, blonde hair, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having faced any real hardship. Gregory, by contrast, looked absolutely furious. His earlier desperation had hardened into pure anger. Bianca, you need to stop this insanity right now, he demanded. Unfreeze the accounts. We can discuss this like reasonable adults. Amelia stood up, positioning herself slightly in front of me. Maybe you should have tried being reasonable before, announcing to everyone that you were leaving Mom, she said. Gregory's eyes widened, as if he'd just noticed our daughter was there. Amelia, this doesn't involve you. Doesn't involve me, she echoed incredulously. You blew up our entire family on my graduation day. And you think it doesn't involve me? Cassandra touched Gregory's arm nervously. Greg, maybe we should just go. He shook her off. No, I'm not leaving until Bianca agrees to be rational about this. Diana folded her arms across her chest. My sister-in-law seems to be the only rational person in this entire scenario. You're the one who created this mess, Gregory. I remained seated, quietly watching the drama unfold. For years, I'd been the peacemaker. The one who smoothed over every conflict, who kept everyone happy. That role had been exhausting, and I'd finally set it down. The accounts will remain frozen until the preliminary hearing, I said calmly. That's in 3 days. The judge will determine appropriate asset division at that time. 3 days. Gregory sputtered. What am I supposed to do for 3 days? You have your personal account, I reminded him. The one you've been secretly funneling money into for the past year. That should be more than sufficient. Cassandra's head whipped toward Gregory. You have a separate account. With how much money in it? An interesting dynamic was emerging here. Clearly, Gregory hadn't been entirely forthcoming with Cassandra either. Gregory ignored her question completely. This is vindictive, Bianca. This isn't like you at all. Perhaps you never really knew me, I replied. Just as I apparently never really knew you. Amelia turned to face Cassandra directly. Did you know he was going to announce it like that? At my graduation celebration. Cassandra had the decency to look ashamed. I thought he was going to talk to your mother privately. The announcement today was completely unexpected for me too. Gregory shot her a betrayed look. Cracks were already forming in their supposed united front. I think you both should leave now, Diana said firmly. You've upset Amelia quite enough for one day. Amelia, please, Gregory pleaded. You understand that relationships change, don't you? Sometimes people just grow apart. My daughter's face hardened in a way I had never seen before. What I understand is that you're a coward who couldn't even give Mom the dignity of a private conversation. What I understand is that you were stealing from our family while I was working 2 jobs to help pay for my textbooks because you kept saying money was tight. Gregory went pale. That's not how it was. It's exactly how it was. Amelia cut him off. Please leave. Dad. I can't even look at you right now. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. Finally, Gregory turned to go, with Cassandra trailing behind him. At the door, he paused and looked back at me one last time. This isn't over, Bianca. I'll fight you on this. I met his gaze steadily. You're welcome to try. After they left, Amelia collapsed onto the sofa next to me, tears streaming down her face. I've never talked to Dad like that before. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. Sometimes standing up for what's right is painful, sweetheart. Diana brought us fresh glasses of wine. To new beginnings, she said, raising her glass. Indeed, I thought to myself. This ending was really just the beginning of something entirely new. The preliminary hearing took place in a small courtroom on a rainy Tuesday morning. I arrived with my attorney Philip, while Gregory came with a lawyer he'd hastily retained. A young associate from a firm that specialized in corporate law, not family matters. Gregory's poor choice of representation was yet another consequence of his rushed planning. The judge was an older woman with sharp eyes and absolutely no patience for dramatics. She reviewed the prenuptial agreement very carefully. This document appears to be in order, she said, looking over her reading glasses at Gregory's attorney. Do you contest its validity? The young lawyer cleared his throat nervously. Your Honor, we believe the agreement has expired due to the length of time that has passed. Section 18 clearly states that the duration is for the term of the marriage, plus any legal proceedings resulting from its dissolution. The judge read aloud. There is no expiration date indicated anywhere. Gregory leaned forward, whispering urgently to his lawyer, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable. Furthermore, the judge continued, the evidence of systematic fund transfers appears to violate the financial disclosure requirements outlined in Section 2. She shuffled through the papers, then looked up. I am ruling to maintain the freeze on joint accounts pending full financial discovery. Mr. Personal account will remain accessible to him. The family home will remain in Mrs. Caldwell's possession during proceedings, as stipulated in the prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause. Gregory's face flushed dark red. This is outrageous, he muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. The judge fixed him with a stern look. Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you review the agreement you signed more carefully. This court will reconvene in 30 days for the full hearing, after discovery is complete. As we left the courtroom, Gregory caught up to me in the hallway. Bianca, please, we need to talk about this reasonably. 28 years together has to count for something. It counted for everything, I replied, until you decided it didn't. I walked away, leaving him standing there alone in the courthouse corridor. Finally feeling the full weight of his choices beginning to sink in, word spread quickly through our social circle. Friends called daily. Some were offering genuine support. Others were clearly just seeking gossip. I maintained a dignified silence about the details, simply saying, Gregory and I are separating. These things happen sometimes. Meanwhile, Gregory's carefully constructed facade was completely crumbling. That image he'd cultivated for years. Successful businessman, devoted family man. It was tarnished beyond any hope of repair. The financial freeze meant he couldn't follow through on any of the promises he'd made to Cassandra. The beachfront property they'd been planning to purchase together fell through. The luxury car he'd put a deposit on had to be canceled. 2 weeks after the hearing, Diana called me. Her voice was tinged with amusement. Have you heard the latest news? Cassandra moved out. Already? I wasn't entirely surprised, but the speed was certainly impressive. Apparently she discovered that Gregory's business isn't doing nearly as well as he'd claimed. Those substantial savings he'd talked about, they don't actually exist. She told her friend Jennifer that she didn't sign up to date a man with financial problems. I couldn't help but laugh. He always was so good at creating illusions. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding my own life. The financial security I'd always maintained separately from our joint accounts gave me a freedom Gregory had never anticipated. I rented a small office space downtown and began setting up the consultancy I'd been dreaming about for years. My first clients were two women going through their own divorces. Word of mouth brought more clients quickly. I specialized in helping women understand their finances during major life transitions. Divorces, yes, but also widowhood and career changes. The work was immediately fulfilling in a way my corporate job had never been. Amelia, who had accepted a position with a marketing firm in Charleston, called me regularly. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she told me after I described my growing client list. "You're really helping people during their worst moments." "I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me earlier," I replied, preparing women for whatever might come their way, being needed for my expertise, rather than just my caregiving abilities. It was a novel and truly empowering experience. Each client who walked through my door reminded me why this work mattered so much. There was Margaret, a 62-year-old woman, whose husband had left her after 40 years of marriage. She had absolutely no idea where their money was, or how to even access it. There was Leisha, only suddenly widowed when her husband died in a car accident. She had 3 young children and no understanding of their financial situation whatsoever. There was Sandra, going through a contentious divorce where her husband was actively hiding assets, just like Gregory had tried to do with me. I helped them all, not just with spreadsheets and account numbers, but with confidence, with knowledge, with the deep understanding that financial independence truly equals freedom. The work consumed me in the very best possible way. I woke up excited each morning, genuinely eager to help another woman take control of her life. Gregory, I heard through mutual acquaintances, was really struggling. His business was failing without my behind-the-scenes financial management that he'd always taken for granted. He'd moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of town. He was dating again, but no relationship seemed to last more than a few weeks. I felt no satisfaction in his struggles, just a sense of sadness for the life we could have had together if he'd only been honest, if he'd valued what we'd built instead of constantly seeking something new and exciting. The final divorce hearing fell on what would have been our 29th anniversary, a somehow fitting end to a chapter of my life that had lasted nearly 3 decades. Gregory arrived, looking absolutely haggard. The past months had clearly taken their toll on him. His hair was grayer, his face more deeply lined with stress. The confident, charismatic man I'd married was completely gone, replaced by someone who just looked defeated. I learned later that his business was actually on the verge of bankruptcy. Without my financial acumen and the resources he'd been counting on from our divorce settlement, he simply couldn't keep it afloat. Cassandra was long gone by now. She was already engaged to a real estate developer from Savannah. I'd seen the announcement in the newspaper. A photograph of her smiling brightly, her hand prominently displaying a large diamond ring. Most of our mutual friends had distanced themselves from Gregory after learning the full story of his deception. The public nature of his announcement at the restaurant, combined with the truth about his financial manipulation, had cost him his entire social standing. Diana sat beside me in the courtroom, providing silent support. Amelia had wanted to come too, but I'd convinced her it wasn't necessary. She didn't need to see her father at his absolute lowest point. The judge reviewed the case very methodically. She examined the prenuptial agreement, the evidence of infidelity, and all the documentation of Gregory's systematic transfer of funds. "The prenuptial agreement is clear and unambiguous," she stated firmly. "The infidelity clause has been triggered by Mr. Caldwell's actions. The evidence presented shows systematic financial deception spanning more than a year." Gregory's attorney tried desperately to argue for a more equitable distribution, but the judge was completely unmoved. "Mr. Caldwell signed this agreement of his own free will," she said. "He was represented by counsel at the time. The agreement specifically addresses the consequences of infidelity. This court will uphold the terms exactly as written." The gavel came down with a finality that echoed through the small courtroom. Gregory left with his personal possessions, his struggling business, and whatever money remained in his private account, which, after paying his attorney's fees and his mounting debts, was barely enough to secure a small apartment. I retained our home, my retirement accounts, and 70% of our joint investments, exactly as the prenuptial agreement stipulated in cases of infidelity. The justice was truly poetic. The very document Gregory had insisted upon to protect himself had become his complete and utter downfall. As we left the courtroom, Gregory approached me one final time. Diana stepped forward protectively, but I gently put a hand on her arm. "It's okay," I said softly. Gregory stopped a few feet away from me. He looked so much older than his 56 years. Tired, broken. "I made a terrible mistake," he said quietly. "Is there any chance at all, that we could?" "No," I interrupted, gentle but absolutely firm. "That door is closed, Gregory." He nodded slowly, as if he'd expected that answer, but had needed to ask anyway. "I understand," he replied, and for once, I actually believed he did. "I hope you find happiness, Bianca. You truly deserve it." It was perhaps the first completely honest thing he'd said to me in years. "I hope you find peace," I replied, and I genuinely meant it. There was no anger left in me, no bitterness whatsoever, just a profound sadness for what had been lost, and a quiet gratitude for what I'd managed to find. As Diana and I walked out of the courthouse, into the bright afternoon sunshine, I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of the marriage, the betrayal, all the legal proceedings, it was finally, completely behind me. "How do you feel?" Diana asked, as we reached her car. I thought about it for a long moment. "Free," I said finally. "I feel absolutely free." 6 months after the final hearing, my consultancy, Caldwell Financial Transitions, was thriving beyond anything I could have imagined. I'd moved from that small office to a much larger space, in a beautiful, historic building downtown, with these tall windows that let in the most wonderful natural light and exposed brick walls that gave the space real character and warmth. I'd hired 2 associates to help with the growing workload. Jennifer was a young woman fresh out of business school, with such genuine passion for helping others, and Marlene, a 50-year-old certified financial planner, who'd gone through her own difficult divorce and really wanted to help other women avoid the same pitfalls she'd experienced. Together, we were genuinely making a difference. My client base had grown to over 50 women now. Some were going through divorces. Others were widows trying to understand the financial landscape for the very first time. Some were young women who simply wanted to make sure they never found themselves financially vulnerable. I gave regular workshops at the local library on financial literacy, specifically for women. I spoke at various women's groups and community centers around the area. I even started writing a weekly column for the local newspaper about financial independence. The work had become so much more than just a career for me. It was truly a calling. Amelia visited often from Charleston, always so proud of what I'd managed to build. She would walk through the office, just beaming as she saw all the women I was helping. "You know what's really ironic?" she said during one visit, as we sat in my office after hours, sharing takeout Chinese food. "If Dad had just been honest, from the very beginning, if he'd just talked to you about feeling unhappy, he might have kept half of everything. You two might have even worked things out. Or if not, you would have at least separated amicably. Sometimes people just can't see beyond what they want in any given moment." I replied, absently picking at my lo mein. "They think the grass is greener somewhere else. That starting completely over will somehow solve all their problems. But they don't realize that wherever you go, there you are. You bring all your issues right along with you." Amelia nodded thoughtfully. "Have you heard anything from him lately?" I shook my head. "No, and I don't expect to. That chapter is completely closed now." "Do you ever regret any of it?" It was a question I'd asked myself many times during those quiet moments late at night. "I regret that the marriage ended the way it did," I said honestly. "I regret that he chose deception over honesty. I deeply regret that you had to witness your father's worst moment on what should have been one of your very best days. But do I regret how I handled everything? No, not for a single second." "Good," Amelia said firmly. "Because you were absolutely amazing. You are amazing, My daughter's words warmed me more than she could possibly know. Through the grapevine, I heard occasional updates about Gregory. His business had finally gone completely under. He was working for someone else now, in some mid-level position at a company where he'd once hoped to be a major competitor. He was apparently dating someone new, a woman closer to his own age this time. I genuinely hoped, for his sake, that he'd learned something valuable from this entire experience. That he was actually capable of honesty this time around, but mostly, I didn't think about Gregory at all anymore. My life had become full in ways I never could have expected. Rich with purpose and real meaning, connected to this incredible community of women who genuinely supported each other. Through all of life's transitions, I started a monthly dinner group for my clients and former clients. We would meet at different restaurants around Augusta, sharing meals and stories, supporting each other through divorces, grief, new relationships, career changes, and all the messy, beautiful complications that life throws at us. These women became my real friends, my community, my sisters in a way that went so much deeper than blood ever could. Diana remained my absolute closest confidant. She'd supported me through the darkest days and celebrated with me as I rebuilt everything. She often joked that losing Gregory as a brother had actually gained her the sister she'd always wanted. One evening, about 8 months after the divorce was completely finalized, I was locking up the office when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me pick up. Bianca Caldwell. A woman's voice asked nervously. Yes, this is she. My name is Patricia Morrison. I really hope you don't mind me calling like this. I got your number from your website. I'm going through something similar to what you experienced, and I just don't know what to do. I unlocked the office door and turned the lights back on. Tell me what's happening, I said, settling back into my chair. Take your time. I'm here to help. As Patricia told me her story, a husband who was hiding money, secret accounts, a carefully planned departure. I felt that familiar surge of purpose wash over me. This was exactly why I did what I did. Not for revenge. Not even for justice, really. For freedom. For empowerment. For that incredible moment when a woman realizes she has so much more strength than she ever knew she possessed. Patricia, I said when she finished, her voice still shaking with fear and uncertainty, you're going to be okay. Better than okay. I'm going to help you through this. Let's schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning. Bring any financial documents you have access to. We're going to build your case, just like I built mine. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet office for a moment, looking around at what I had built. The comfortable chairs where women sat and shared their fears. The shelves lined with financial planning books and legal resources. The certificates on the wall. The framed photo of Amelia at her graduation, taken just hours before everything changed. My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. Dinner tomorrow night, my place. I'm making that pasta you love. I smiled and replied, wouldn't miss it. Another text came through. This one from Amelia. Love you, Mom. Just wanted to say I'm proud of you. Call you this weekend. Love you too, sweetheart. Can't wait to hear all about your week. As I gathered my things and prepared to leave, I caught my reflection in the window. The woman looking back at me was different from the one who had walked out of that restaurant 8 months ago. She was stronger, more confident, more herself. The woman who had once defined herself as Gregory's wife and Amelia's mother had discovered a new identity, mentor, business owner, advocate, friend, but most importantly, simply Bianca. I turned off the lights and locked the door behind me. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new women to help, new lives to transform. But tonight, I would go home to my house, the one I had kept, the one that now felt truly mine. I would pour myself a glass of wine. I would sit on the porch and watch the sunset. I would call an old friend I had been meaning to reconnect with. I would live my life. On my terms. By my rules. The envelope I had handed Gregory at the restaurant hadn't just been my escape plan. It had been the key to a door I never knew existed. Behind it I found, not just revenge, but reinvention. In securing my financial future, I had also reclaimed something far more valuable. Myself.